If you are new to my page, I have probably 10,000 new followers this month, and I always like to tell people that I'm a therapist by day. You probably know that if you watch my content. And this is my way of giving back, answering questions, helping people. So if you have a question, it can be really about anything, whatever you want to ask. If it's mental health related, I do a lot of couples counseling. I work with a lot of kids and teenagers, mostly teenagers. Anxiety, personal growth, you name it. So grab a glass of wine, hang out. There's usually a really cool crowd of people that hop in. And so, hi, welcome. There's so many things, we could talk about so many things, so many parenting things, so many kid things. Sometimes I think the hardest thing I've done, honestly, is be a parent to adults, because I know how to be a friend, but to my friends, right? But I don't talk to my friends the way I talk to my children. There were things I certainly wouldn't say to them that I would say to my friends. And you can't mother them the way that you do when they're little, because they're adults. And there's no rule book, right? I mean, there's no rule book at all. But my mom passed away before my kids became adults. So I didn't really have a chance to talk to her about, like, what do you do? Not that she was great at it, actually. But, it's probably the finest line that I walk, even as a therapist, because there's a healthy way to give the kids space and autonomy and boundaries, and I know that. And then there's the mother in me that sees them heading for the cliff, that says, no, don't do that. And they're like, but I want to. And because they're adults, you're like, okay. And then it's that consequence thing. I remember saying to my daughter once, I said, this doesn't end well. She goes, well, maybe for you it didn't, but it'll be different for me. Okay, knock yourself out. Oh, Mom, why didn't you tell me? Are you kidding me? It's like telling somebody who's pregnant for the first time that they have to sleep when the baby sleeps. They hear you, but they think they're going to be different. They think they've got a plan, and they think, well, that's not going to apply to them. For sure, selective hearing, but it's all of that. And I think the first time, people can tell you all day long what's appropriate or healthy or unhealthy or positive or negative. But man, oh man, there's just something about having to do it yourself and learn the hard way. And it's so painful to watch your adult children making the mistakes that are going to end in painful lessons. And, it doesn't even matter how mild it is, I talked to a parent today who monitors her adult daughter's, hey, Em. So she monitors her adult daughter's bank account, and when the daughter overdrafts her bank account, but with their debit card, Mom sweeps money from the daughter's savings account into the daughter's checking account. So it's still the daughter's money. And I said, but how does she get the understanding and the experience that money is like pouring out of there if she's not actively engaged in monitoring and managing those accounts? well, I just don't, you know how it is, like you overdraft one and then 5 things bounce. And I said, yeah, that's a $400 mistake that many of us have made. And then we learn not to make that mistake because watching $400 come out of your account hurts so bad. And I get it. I don't want my kid to have that experience either. But there's just no way to teach them what they don't know sometimes if they're not going to listen to your guidance. And I'm not even sure that our kids necessarily should listen to all of our guidance, right? I think about my girls who hear me, they listen. They're actually, I think for the most part, they consider what I have to say and then they make their own decision. I try to make sure that they ask for my advice. I learned that the hard way. I used to give it unsolicited all the time because that's what I do. And eventually they said, Mom, I'm not asking. I just need you to listen. I'm like, oh, right. And it took me some time to really practice getting that straight. Most of the time I'm pretty good about that. Sometimes I'm not. I mean, I'm human and I forget. Or, you know, I'd be in the middle of something. One of my daughters called today and was sharing something with me. And I said something that I knew it wasn't the right thing to say. And I said, you know what, scratch that. This is where my heart actually feels this way. It's okay, it's your call. My head has a whole different thought process, but it's not, you know, it's not my heart. I want to go with my heart. And by the end of the conversation, I think I'd confused the crap out of her, and I was covering my behind because sometimes the head talks, man, before the heart can follow up. And hi, Gigi. And Jamalyn and Some Love, thank you for the follow. Anyway, it's, you know, it's all good. Gigi, can we talk about feeling bad about COVID weight gain? Sure, we can talk about it. I put on a pair of pants today that, yeah, they fit about the same as they did last year, but, and you know, this is interesting. I've actually had them for like 10 years. And 10 years ago, they fit, and then they got really big, and now they fit again. And so, like, that's the pattern, right? And Gigi, how does beating yourself up help you? Always ask yourself that question. How is this helping me? What value is this abuse teaching me? What value does it have? If it's not helping you, turn it around. Because that criticism that you are, hello, I love, you hit 50 right before COVID. It doesn't help. I know. It's harder. It's harder to lose weight. But I'm telling you, that criticism is not helping you. There's nothing valuable in that criticism. And so try a little self-love. Try a little, you know who does a really good job with this is Girl Beats Depression. And I would go back and look at some of her videos from like February and March when she's doing a really good job. And I think in May, she hasn't been posting as much because I think she might be struggling a little bit. But she did an amazing job for a couple of months of being kind to herself. It's exactly where you needed to go. And she still lost weight, and she did the exercising, and she ate right, and she was kind to herself. And I really think self-love, if you can absolutely treat yourself to brownies if you're not going to beat yourself up about it, okay? If you'd rather not have the brownies, then tell yourself that you want to love yourself tomorrow, and so the brownies aren't going to help that. Care, good for you. 23 pounds in a year is a great accomplishment, you know? Listen, you guys, I have lost and gained probably 300 pounds in my lifetime. I struggled with weight all through school. I look back at pictures of myself now, and we all do this, right? When I remember feeling so fat and thinking, oh my God, I would give anything to have that size back or that shape back. But today, I don't get on the scale anymore. Thank you, Debbie. I don't get on the scale anymore because it doesn't serve me. I try to use my clothes as a guide. I don't want to have to shop and buy new clothes. And when they start feeling tight, I spend a week cutting out things that I love, like bread. You know, I probably should cut out wine, but you know, I mean, if you're here with me on Thursday nights, you know that this heavy pour is my nightly pleasure, and I am too freaking old now to worry about it. You know, my mom passed away at 66, so I think to myself, if I'm dead in 5 years, I am not giving up this damn wine. Seriously. Now, maybe it'll help me live 15 or 20 years, but if I only have 5 years to live, I am not wasting one freaking moment of it worried that I have rolls in my stomach. And Debbie, thank you very much. You know, seriously, it's just such a freaking waste of time. It really is. If I sit back and think about how much time in my life I wasted worrying about what size I was, it's sad to me. So I don't think about it anymore. Yeah, well, thanks. And oh, good job. Happiness. It's, you know, it has to be where you feel, I'm not giving up the wine, Deborah, don't you worry. It has to be where you find a comfort level. And, you know, to be honest, I've seen some really ugly, thin people because they're not kind, they're not happy. And then some of the most beautiful people I know are large. And if you sit back and you try to really imagine that, it over and over again, think about the people, the large people that you know that are happy and jovial and kind and empathetic. Nobody is looking at their size. They're commenting on the joy that they feel in the presence of that person. Hello, beautiful people. Oh, your dad told you from a young child you were fat and you should be ashamed. You know what I want to say to your dad? Aren't you special? And in the South, do you know what that means? It's not nice. Cecilia, how are you? You know, my ex-husband told me if I ever got fat, he would leave me, so I understand. I remember kids on the playground saying, you'd be pretty if you weren't fat. I had, when I was 19, some man told me I had tree trunks for legs. I should be in the forest because I had tree trunks for legs. So I get it. I totally get that. Which is why I struggled so much on and off all that time. I just think when I look back, it was such a waste, because I know that when I paid attention to the body that I wanted, not the body my husband wanted, not the body that my friend had, but the body that I wanted, I got it. I had control over that. Think about that for a minute. When you pay attention to the body you want, you'll have control over it. Yeah. I mean, it's all a lesson, you guys. I mean, if you hang out here with me, you know that I believe everything has value, and those things have value too. So what are you going to learn? What are you going to take from it? Try that. So what do you want your body to look like? Try that. Try just seeing it, and loving it, being kind, you know. In all fairness, you probably won't see me in short sleeve shirts because I've got these lovely wings. It's really hard for me to put on a bathing suit these days because I don't feel comfortable. But I'm working on that. And, you know, my grandkids don't give a shit what I look like in my bathing suit. They just want Mimi. So I'm really, really working on that this year. Same for your kids, right? Your boyfriend is a big guy. You don't see his weight, and he's such a great person. Exactly. Can't treat yourself that way. You can. Don't say you can't. You can. You totally can. I mean, can't, you haven't. Maybe that's a better word, a better way of saying that. But you can. If you can treat him that way, you can treat yourself that way. You know, our language is so powerful. We believe what we say. So we have to be careful. Really, really careful with the words that come out of our mouth, or the words that swirl around in our brain, because we believe what we hear from ourselves most of the time. There are some situations where that's not exactly true. But it's so important to say, well, I can, but I haven't. I can, but I don't want to. I can, but I don't know how. I can, but I haven't taken the time. So you can, because you've done it. So make sure that you tell yourself, I can, and then be honest with what's going on in that room. Hey, Stack, how are you? 302, I am in Delaware, Dock and Book. Thank you, guys. I'm Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey is where I practice. You're hesitant to let your daughter get the shot, okay? So, Elizabeth, how old is your daughter? And did you give her the HPV shot? She's 15, and would you be consenting to the HPV shot? No. Okay. Well, you know, this is one of those things that I think it's super important for you to explain to her why. And at the end of the day, you're leading the ship here. You're steering. Your husband and you decided not to get this shot, and our kids won't either. No HPV shot for your girl. Okay. Elizabeth in 198. 302. I'm going to answer that in just a second. I really want to just respect the fact that this is a call that you have to make for you and your family, right? I do recommend that you stay on top of the research, and I'm going to suggest to you that you go to the reddit.com/coronavirus thread. Use Reddit because Reddit seems to be, Reddit is a aggregation source, right? All of the news, and then there's commentary on the news, and there tend to be a lot of professionals who debate both sides. And I think information is power. Personally, I have a brother who researches at the National Institute of Health. I've always trusted him. He's a lymphoma researcher, but their team has been on and off different COVID cases. I trust him. And so when I see a paper that talks about inflammation disease in children, or the questions or the things that they're not, I ask him. And I think it's really important to find somebody you trust, whether it's your doctor, whether it's an immunologist, somebody that actually understands the composition and the pros and cons of what are the long-term effects of COVID, because we don't know that either, and what are the long-term effects of the vaccine. And at the end of the day, right now, we don't know either answer, right? And so you have to, like anything else we do, you have to get the information and then make the best informed decision that you feel comfortable with making. That's all you can do. I don't know what state you're in, but in a lot of states, as long as the FDA has approved a drug, just like birth control, children in Pennsylvania, children 14 and over can make decisions for themselves. So, I think it needs to be a really honest, upfront conversation for you and your family, all of you. And I would strongly recommend not to say, because we said so. That's, for a 15-year-old, that's not a good enough answer. And in most states at 15, they have, and I don't know that most kids know this, but legally in most states, a lot of kids can make their own medical decisions. So I would hate for that to be something that divides your family. So make them a part of that conversation. That's my brother was top first in line to get the shot. He is immunocompromised. He knew that COVID would be bad news for him. mRNA technology has been in existence for over a decade. They actually started developing it for SARS, but then SARS kind of waned out before they had to, same with SARS and MERS, right? And it doesn't change. It changes the protein. It doesn't change your DNA. It doesn't do any of that. Johnson & Johnson is the one that's virus-based, but that's how we give measles and varicella and all of those, the flu shots and whatnot. So, I trust my brother, and that's where I went. I got the shot. I tried the magnet. My arm does not hold a magnet. That's just bullshit. Hi, Lily. So there you go. All of her friends have it, and she's blaming me for being left out. Everything is so inconsistent. I think it's, we never should do anything or encourage our kids to do something just because everybody else is doing it. I really think if you sit down and help her understand your reasoning and then ask her how she feels about it, and you talk to her about being afraid of not having enough information, because that's what I'm kind of getting from you, is that I don't know what's inconsistent. I haven't heard anything inconsistent about the mRNA, at least the Pfizer vaccine. But if you sit down and talk to her, listen, your job is, all of our jobs, is to keep our kids safe. So when we make a decision for our children, 99% of the time it's coming from a place of a desire to keep them safe. And we need to talk about that. And if they think we're unreasonable, I absolutely would say, I hear you. And, you know, when you turn 18, if you want to get it, by all means, go get it. At that point, you'll be an adult and we can't stop you. Technically, you can't now. But she doesn't know that. I mean, I did that with my kids with tattoos. I didn't want my kids getting tattoos or going skydiving. I was afraid, right? And the tattoo wasn't about fear, but the skydiving was about fear. But how many of my kids do you think turned 18 and went skydiving? 3 of the 4, right? I said no, and it made them want it more, honestly. But it was my rule, and I asked them to respect my rule. And I said, when you're 18, you do what you want. But this is my house. You're my responsibility. It's my job to keep you safe. And this is how I feel about that. Now, I will caution you, and I've been talking about this in my content. Too many rules, too much rigidity is not good. Too much rigidity creates rebellion. And my son would probably tell you that he had too many rules. You know, as a first-time mom, I learned pretty fast that too many rules didn't work. I wasn't a therapist back there, full disclosure. And then when my girls were just going into their teen years, I was in grad school learning about psychology and teens. And by then I'd had some experience with raising kids. And I shifted the way that I approached my parenting, and I would tell you it turned out much better. Now, granted, they're girls, and I was in a better headspace. So there's, you know, all of those things are variables with our little experiments. And yet each one of them, this is what's so fascinating about it, each one of them has a different perception of what that actually looked like. So, you know, all those people in that one video that went viral, all those people who said, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, they're kind of right. Because A, every kid is different. B, you're different with every kid. You can't help it. We're not consistent because they're not the same. We're not consistent because year by year we change. How many people in those comments, there were, I don't know, almost 1,000 comments. How many of those people said, I'm tired? And oh my God, do I understand that? You know, by the time my youngest came along, I was like, do whatever the hell you want, because I was tired of setting rules. It wasn't quite like that. But I thought she had so much anxiety and she was so shy. And she was such an introvert that I didn't think I had to worry about her at all. And it turns out she was the wildest. Seriously, she tells me things. Maybe she wasn't the wildest, but I didn't think she was doing anything that was, you know, something out of my radar. And come to find out, she was doing all kinds of shit out of my radar. So they get a big kick out of telling me today what I didn't know back then. And knock on wood, I have 4 amazing children who pushed boundaries, who were not honest with me all the time. In part, they say because I was too strict in some areas, but then they would say I wasn't strict enough in others. So you're right. We're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. But there are definitely that super strict and rigid that creates big problems. And the completely lax and the person who wants, I want to be your best friend, let's go do this together, that doesn't work either. What's my suggestion for discipline when a 15-year-old doesn't want to do chores? Well, so here's what I said on Monday night. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make as parents in our frustration to just get it done is we, from very early ages, we do it for them, right? And no 15-year-old wants to do chores. But the fact of the matter is that everybody in the house is a member of a community. That house is a community, and there's a responsibility to the community. We all have a responsibility. You and your husband go to work every day. You go to the grocery store. You cook dinner, blah, 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 blah. So you're engaged in your commitment to the community. Your children, all of our children, it would be lovely if all of our children understood what it meant to contribute to a community, and that starts at home. And so I never believed, and I was a financial advisor for 20 years, I never believed in allowances for basic contributions to the home. So every Saturday morning or at some point during the week, I'd set the timer for 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. Everybody would run and pick up their crap, run a vacuum cleaner, run a dust rag. Now I had 4 kids, so it helped to have that many. And we would tidy up. I had a housekeeper that came in every other week to do the big stuff. If they wanted money, movies. So my job, and I said this to my kids, my job is to provide a roof over your head, food in your belly, and clothes on your back. Basic clothes on your back. And I'm happy to do that. I love you. I'm your parent. That's my job. And then I said, if you want something else, you contribute to the community. And if you don't, or you don't get something for nothing, nobody gets something for nothing. So you contribute to the community, and if you want something else, you have to earn it, because that's what happens in the real world. You have to earn it. So I posted a list of chores that they could make money. And if they wanted to go to the movies, or if they wanted $10, they had to earn it. Now, they didn't have to do it for me. They could go to the neighbors and mow their lawn or weed their garden or babysit their kids. A lot of the time, my kids wouldn't be home because they were off doing their own jobs. They would go to work. Now, we always had a rule also that if they wanted something like summer camp or, and I mean like scout camp, or they wanted dance camp, or they wanted, one of my daughters went to France during her sophomore and junior year. They had to pay for 30% of it. And I say 30, it was 33 because their dad and I had split up by then, and he paid 33 and I paid 33. And if they didn't make 33%, then it didn't get done. And there were some times when it was heartbreak because I didn't just hand them the difference. I did give out a couple of loans, and I charged interest, and I explained it, and we wrote it down, and they had to make payments. And I was literally saying, if you don't have the cash, you need to go wash the sliding glass door or something. Because I think the payment on this one example was like $5 a week. So there's a way to teach that. And if they choose not to do anything, okay. They're teenagers, they will eventually want something. And if they, out in the real world, they have to work to earn money to get what they want. So that needs to start as teenagers at home. I hope that answers your question. It's at his father's that he's there only every weekend, so he feels unfair that he has to do chores. Well, it's totally not unfair. Sorry, guys, I'm missing. So it's at his father's house. He's there over the weekend, so he feels unfair he has to do chores. So ideally, this is what I was going to say. Ideally, you and his dad would have the same requirements. Now that's ideal. When I do co-parenting, I try to really encourage the parents to choose 3 or 4 things that is the same at both houses, because that is so hard on kids. So hard. When I was growing up, my parents divorced, and my stepmom was so conservative and so strict, and she gave us the silent treatment when we misbehaved, which was pure torture. My stepdad was an Army sergeant, and so he was strict, but instead of being cold and aloof, he was pretty loving and jovial. But either way, the rules were so different. Like at my mom and stepdad's house, we didn't have to do squat at home. At my stepmom and my dad's house, my sister and I said the only reason that they even wanted us there was to be their slaves. I used to tell my dad I was going to grow up and write a book called Fetch It, because I was like his little runner. And it's not that, I mean, I didn't like being there. I wanted to be with my mom more than I wanted to be with my stepmom. Fortunately for me, I was old enough by the time that all kind of transpired that I moved out. I went to college. But the one thing my really crappy ex-husband, he was a really crappy husband. And he wasn't a very good ex-husband, but he was a decent co-parenter. And he would honor the things that I said I thought were super important. The girls I had primary custody, so they were with me more than him. And so if I said, I took Emily's phone away, he wouldn't give it back to her. He would give it away. Now, there were some things, but generally speaking, we backed each other up, and that's so important. Advice for mom of a perfectionist. Ooh, that's good. So, mom of a perfectionist. Most of the time, I think I would really look long and hard at why or how she developed perfectionism, right? Sometimes, and I'll share with you that, one of the chores that my girls had was loading the dishwasher after dinner. Well, they would go to bed and I would rearrange the dishwasher because I could get more in. Not because they did it wrong, but because I could get more in, right? And there were usually a few more cups, and so I would rearrange it. Little did I know that my oldest daughter was usually awake and she could hear me doing it. And so she internalized that she hadn't done it good enough. And from that, she started developing some perfectionistic, I have to do it better. I have to do better. I'm not good enough. And she internalized that because I rearranged the dishwasher. Now, that wasn't my intent, right? We don't always help. We can't help how our kids are going to internalize or interpret our behaviors. So I would ask questions. Why do you think you have to do that? There's only a couple of reasons that somebody becomes a perfectionist. 1, they want to be loved. 2, they don't feel safe. And the perfectionism kind of helps them feel in control, because that's how they feel safe. But even then, if we really dive in, often that's related to I don't feel loved, or I want to be liked, something along that line. So I think that we have to ask why. Why are you doing that? Why is it important? What would happen if you aren't perfect? What would that mean to you? Take her to a therapist for a couple of sessions. Perfectionism from fear of failure. Yes, that happens a lot. And what about hereditary hoarding as perfectionism? How does that for with the two reasons? Fear. Hoarding is about fear, right? Hoarding is fear of losing something, fear of not having something, fear of, it's anxiety. Anxiety is fear. So, and that's absolutely something that is important to get to a therapist, get in front of a therapist about as soon as you can. What is my best piece of parenting advice? 753 and you're expecting. Okay. The advice that I give my children, is in particularly my daughter-in-law, because she's the only one who's had kids yet, is that you must have grace with yourself, because you are going to mess it up. No matter how hard you try, you're going to mess something up, because it's the hardest damn job that exists. I think the single most important thing is to pick a couple of rules, couple of values that you want to enforce or to uphold, and to be 100%, you'll never get there, 95% consistent on enforcing those values, whatever they are. In my house, it was honesty, academics, and responsibility. Those were the three things that I did not deviate from. There were lots of things that I was wishy-washy about. You can watch TV this morning. No, you can't watch TV tomorrow. No TV today. Yes, go ahead and watch TV. I remember saying you can't watch. One time I had it in my head that they couldn't watch Rugrats because that little girl, Angelica, she was such a brat, and they started talking like Angelica. I'm like, no way, you're not watching this anymore. That lasted about a month. But there were other things that I didn't deviate from, and those are the things that I think turned them into the people that they are today. One of them was doing chores at home and being part of a community and working for what they want. All four of my kids are so fiscally responsible. They have incredible work ethics. And while I don't agree with all of their choices, they're all just really, when it all's said and done, they're good human beings. And I have to think that in part it's because we really instilled that. Academically, I didn't care if they were A students, but I really always said, I expect you to do your best. And if they brought home a C and they told me that that was their best, I didn't argue with them. I said, good job. What would it take for us to bring that up a little bit? I always wanted them to push to be a little bit better than they were yesterday. But if they told me that they did their best, it was absolutely good enough. Let's see. So I think that's the best advice, right? And take a vacation. You have to take a vacation without your kids once a year, even if it's just for a weekend, because you will be a better parent. I'm amazed at how many people do not do that. but self-care still reigns. You have to take care of yourself. Before you're a parent, you're a woman. And before you were a parent, you were a spouse. And those kids are going to grow up and they're going to move out. And if you don't nurture the relationship that you have with your spouse, you will be 25-year-old divorcee, or divorced after 25 years of marriage, or 20 years. You can't forget about that relationship. Affirmations, Lily, can be part of the law of attraction, but they're not exclusive to the law of attraction. Sometimes good kids come from bad parents, absolutely. And kids who go through trouble come from good families, absolutely, no questions. You're 100% correct about that. I'm pretty amazed at the number of people who make the assumption that I'm talking about everybody all the time in my content. I'm not. I mean, I'm going to start making that disclaimer because it's frustrating me that I feel pretty frustrated that so many people are attacking in the comments. They feel like attacks. You're wrong, lady. You're not a good therapist. I would never take my kid to you. And I know intellectually. But what I think is really important is that nobody, not one person on TikTok, certainly not one therapist, is in 15 to 60 seconds speaking about all people all the time. That's not even realistic. So, yeah. So you're absolutely right, 17. Amanda, parenting after an abusive childhood is so triggering and lonely. Oh, yes, it is. Such hard work. So good for you for staying open to learning, to breaking the cycle, for doing something different. Good for you. My advice, I know you didn't ask for it, but I was going to actually make a video about this. And so if I can, let's see, I'll never remember, and you know what, in my, in the live recordings, they don't have all the comments, so I lose the comments. But what I want to say to you is find a person that parents in a way that you would like to emulate and study them. It can be a TV character, knowing that, of course, that's not reality. But if there are elements of that fiction that you want to embody, study it, try it, mimic it. I mean, for the most part, all we do is mimic anyway. We mimic what we had. So find somebody in your life, or maybe a friend's parent, who emulates the kind of parenting that you want to engage in, and mimic them and fake it until you make it. And good for you for breaking that. And get support, right? Be part of a mom's group, or a therapy group. Mom's Club is all over the country. And I'm pretty sure in most places it's free. So then there's MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers, and there's lots of support when we look for it. What advice can you give me regarding adult children age 22? Is it normal that he ignores? Yes. Oh my gosh. What advice? So I said a little bit earlier that the thing I've learned, and my children now range from 25 to 37, and the thing that one of the most frustrating things, and I said this earlier, is that nobody talks about how to parent adults. And the truth is, we can't parent them, but we're still a parent, and it's still inappropriate to be their BFF, right? We want that friendship, evolved so that over time, maybe by the time they're 40, we're more friendly friends than we are parents. But I mean, my 25-year-old I'm still very much her mom. And I would say even my 37-year-old, I'm his mom, but he doesn't need me to mom as much, right? So don't give advice unless they ask you. And that's been so hard for me. I literally think sometimes I have seizures because I want to give the advice so bad, because that's what I do. And I spent the first part of this live tonight talking about that. I'm going to be putting my lives, good news, I'm going to be putting my lives, I think it's good news, on my YouTube channel, so that if you come in for just a part of it and you can't stay, you can always go to my YouTube channel and see the whole recording. Or, if you're one of the amazing people that are here every Monday, every Thursday, and you want to go back and say, what did Leslyn say about that? You'll be able to go to my YouTube channel and listen again. So I hope that answers your question. I mean, I could tell you so much more, right? Distance. If they don't call you, you call them. Be interested. I mean, I made it really clear that I couldn't go from them being a part, such an integral part of my life, to not being part of my life at all. That I couldn't do that. That doesn't mean I wanted to smother them and I didn't want to invade their privacy, but I'm interested in your life. I mean, I've been so invested in your life, right? I just want to know. And so honestly, I think I ask my questions, or my kids questions. I want to know about their jobs. I want to know about their successes. I ask, and I'm so much better at this, but I try to ask if I have something, I had a thought, do you have any interest in hearing it? Because otherwise they'll stop calling. I have my best friend shares the way she would do it almost every time her kids call. And she's, and I know that her kids struggle with those relationships. And I don't want that to happen for me. So I don't do that. So I think it's easier to say lots of things that I don't do versus what I do. Why do you think that strict parents, and I'm assuming you mean that video. So if you read through the comments, people will tell you. And I said super strict and rigid. And I have another video that clarifies what strict is. Super strict and rigid parents do not give any room for teenagers to develop autonomy, right? It's my way or the highway. It's because I said so. And so teenagers lose the opportunity to contribute to the community. And what happens if you don't feel connected to your community? You leave. You log out. You disengage. And the people in the comments will tell you over and over again, I had to lie to my parents because I was doing things they didn't want me to do. Well, for super strict and rigid parents, when I was growing up, that was listening to a transistor radio. For my kids, it was a variety of things, whether it was drinking. I didn't want them to do it, and I wouldn't let them do it at my house, so they went someplace else and did it. For my son, it was smoking weed. I wouldn't let my son, he was my first, I wouldn't let him drive with his friends because I was afraid that they would get in a car accident, right? So I made him drive everywhere independently. But when you want to go into town and get ice cream, that's a pain in the ass. So he would drive, park his car at the high school, and then get in the car with a bunch of his friends. So is some of that normal? Yes, of course some of that is normal. Because all teenagers are going to push boundaries a little bit. But the super strict and rigid parents usually have so many rules. I mean, the highway is so tight and narrow that it's not realistic for a teenager to walk that well. And so in order to avoid getting into trouble, they're going to lie. I did when I was, remember I talked about my stepmom, if you weren't in here in a few minutes, she was super strict. And she was a devout Catholic, and she insisted that we go to church every Sunday. And I worked on Sunday mornings. So if I was going to do it her way, I would get up at 7 o'clock or 6:30, go to 7 o'clock mass, and then I'd be at work by 9:30. Well, I didn't want to do that. So I would get up and I would go out to breakfast. And I'd stop by the church and I'd grab a whatever they're called, the little newspaper thingy, and where it said, Father John is talking about this for the homily, and I would memorize that. When she said, how was Mass? I would say, oh, Father John talked about blah, blah, blah. And then one day, my dad came home and said, I'm so proud of you guys that I talk about you all the time, and I show your pictures. And today I had a client, and I guess, it was like Howard Johnson's or the Pancake House or something. And I was showing the client, and the waitress go, oh, that girl comes in every Sunday. And so Dad had a nice little chat with me. I didn't lie much, but I did lie about that. And I lied because I didn't want to disappoint them. And those, to be honest, that video was supposed to just be a little sassy. Sometimes you can put up 2 months worth of videos and they get nothing. And then you're just a little bit sassy and the whole freaking world decides to see it and share it. And okay. But it really developed into a good conversation. I'm not sorry that I said it. Because it's true. I see it in my practice. And it's not everybody all the time. But it's definitely true that the kids who are telling me about their lies are the ones with super strict parents. Every single one of the kids that are telling me about the lies. Not every single kid I see, not every single teenager, but the ones that are talking to me about their lies. Now, it's possible that they're lying to me too. But I am a trained therapist, trained in trying to see around people and catch them in their lies. Not perfect, but yeah. So I hope that answered your question. When should your kids start to do chores? So, Con, we've talked about this a lot. If your kid refuses to do chores, then I hope you're going to refuse to do anything above and beyond, right? If he can't contribute to the community, then there's no extra. And that's the way the world works. The Finn, I don't know if you're still in here. I'm sorry. Advice for betrayal after an SA diagnosis 7 years ago. And now you're on round 2. SA. I'm not making a connection with that. Betrayal after SA diagnosis. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's because it's late on a Thursday night or if it's an acronym that I don't use very often. I'm so sorry. I am like totally ruining that. Go to my website. The link is in my bio, and I do offer virtual therapy sessions where I'm licensed, but I also do a lot of coaching if you want growth versus healing. They're a little bit different. Kids won't do chores. Threat to take phone away. Kids said it was educational abuse due to schoolwork. Oh my gosh. Crazy Lane. I've talked a lot tonight about kids doing chores. I'll make a string of videos about this. Matter of fact, thank you for the this is like 3 questions or 4 questions. Certainly to Nick. If they don't do chores, you don't do extra stuff. Period. Don't drive them anywhere. Don't give them any money. Technically, I guess you don't have to wash their clothes. If they're not going to contribute to the community, you don't have to contribute. And this is, I'm telling you, when I hear they won't do chores, this is a power struggle. A power struggle, right? And honestly, most of our kids now have data, so you have to turn the data off and the Wi-Fi off. I say turn the damn phone off. But I do think, I don't know that that's actually I don't know that that's actually effective, because it's really, it is part of their social scene in the pandemic. If they're using it to connect to Blackboard, if they don't have a laptop or a desktop or some other thing. But you guys, we're talking about a power struggle here, right? They're vying for who's going to win. And it has, oh my gosh, what is that? It's so cute. Thank you so much. They are vying for who's going to win. It has to be you. It has to be. You're the leader. You're you're at the top of the food chain, not the food chain. I want to make it sound so hierarchical, but you're the leader of the pack. So you have to win. You could do that. You could block all the websites. But here again, if they go to data, that's not going to work, right? Yes, you're the alpha. This is about not giving in to that in a way. It doesn't need to be a big battle. It can be a quiet, here's the consequence, and back off. You want $10 to go to the movies? I wanted the garbage taken out. You didn't contribute to the community. I'm not contributing to the community in that way. It's simply, it really is that simple. Monday night when I was here, when I was live, I had a huge, what did I have? A very passionate monologue about the fear and the absence of courage that we have as parents. Sam, I'm so sorry. It's authoritarian parenting isn't it, but it is authoritative, right? Authoritative parenting is somebody is leading the pack, right? Somebody has to be the leader, not the czar, the leader. And I always talk about Simon Sinek because Simon Sinek is such an amazing leader. He talks a lot about leading with empathy. He talks a lot about being the kind of example that you want your team to be. And that's what I'm talking about. And when we're talking to our teenagers who don't want to do anything, they want to stay in bed and they don't want to do anything, it's important not that we're authoritarian, but that we say, okay, you don't feel like doing anything? I understand. Remember, this is a community, and it's easier when this is set in stone from a very early age. But we are part of a community. So what you get out of it is in part what you put into it. I just want you to remember that. So when you come to me and you ask for something, okay, that I'm gonna take a look at what you put into this. I've worked with people in the past that have golden child syndrome. And man, they're narcissistic. I mean, you raise a golden child, there's a really good chance you're going to raise a narcissist. Because there's an absence of empathy. There's an absence of taking accountability, right? This is the path to NPD, is that entitlement that happens when we don't teach kids how to be part of a community. It's so important, right? And the scapegoat forgotten child, that's not healthy either. It's not, the authoritarian parenting style doesn't work. So I'm not saying that you are the czar. I'm saying that you're the leader. And if you don't know who Simon Sinek is, go watch his YouTube channel and think of his corporate organization strategy as your family. And consider how that might change the dynamic. You know, when I talk about having come to Jesus meetings with my kids, this is a process. And when I say come to Jesus meetings, it's really, and I don't know where that phrase came from, but it's really about just sitting down saying, look, you guys, I am so frustrated. I really do try hard here to meet your needs and to have my needs and the needs of the household met, but it's not working. So what are we going to do about it? Because we all live here. What do you want to do about it? And I would ask them, what consequence do you think is fair for not doing your chores? Yeah, crazy. I say that too. I say, my house, my rules. You can do what you want in your house. And again, I don't think that's authoritarian. That's respect, right? It's not my job to enable you not to be a contributing, responsible member of society. That's a lot of double negatives. So my job is to teach you how to become a contributing, responsible, kind, compassionate part of humanity. That's my job. And how does this debate that we're having, and I don't mean between us, but I mean if I'm talking to one of my kids, how does this debate contribute to that? You know, I will say this. I have one caveat for authoritarian. One of the things I tried to teach my kids, and so I don't know where this falls in that space. I think some people would say it's authoritarian, but I always told them that one of the things that I was concerned about in terms of this debate, you know, Sarah, I want you to put away the dishes. I don't want to put away the dishes. Sarah, get up, please. I don't want to get up, or I'm busy, or I don't have time, or I'm too tired, or I don't want to. If your parent, if your leader says, get up, it's probably not, if you've set the stage correctly, it's probably not because they just feel like telling you to get up. It might be because there's a snake coming at you, or a live electrical line, or a car's coming down the road and they're telling you to stop. And if you turn around and say, I don't want to stop, or why do I have to stop? Or you just decide you're going to ignore me, your life could be at risk. And so I tried to tell my kids, if I'm abruptly yelling at you to stop or move or something along those lines, listen to me, just do it. Because I'm not doing it to be a bossy SOB. I'm doing it to save your life or protect you or keep you from getting hurt. And again, I think those kind of things start really young. We can't just necessarily decide to start doing that when they're 15, because we probably have some super bad habits. Samantha, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of people, you know, in that video, I was talking about authoritarian. A lot of people made the assumption that I was talking about just some strictness, and authoritative parents do have some strict measures. They just don't have a lot. They're not super strict and rigid, which is what I was saying. So, hey, listen, guys, I am going to end tonight. It's 10:30. I've been talking nonstop. I really love your questions. Thank you so much for coming. It was so good to see or to talk to so many new people and to see a few of my old favorite friends. So have a great Memorial Day weekend. I will be around Monday night. It's 9 o'clock on Monday. So, you know, pour a glass of wine unless you need to detox after the weekend, and come hang out with me Monday night. Have a great weekend on Java. Thank you so much. You're very welcome, everybody. My pleasure. Monday, Thursday, 9 p.m. Thanks.